Let's make melodic techno in the style of Anyma in 2025, start to finish. And yes, you're gonna be able to download this project, so this way you can learn more about music production and about this specific style. But first, let's make the song. The first thing we need to focus when making techno or melodic techno in this case is the kick and the bass. Usually the kicks in melodic techno are quite tight and punchy, something like this. And my advice for the kick is to look for the kick that sounds as close as what you want, and try to avoid processing, just small tweaks, but don't start boosting the low end and compressing and distorting. No, look for another kick, it will sound way better. In this particular case I think the punch is a bit too much, so around here I'm gonna reduce a little bit. And maybe we can boost a little bit the top to cut through the mix a bit better, but as you can see the change is really subtle. And I'm not gonna do any more processing. And for the bass, first let's start with the mid bass, because this way we're gonna hear better the rhythm, the notes and all of this. And I'm going to use this preset that I made myself. It's just sine waves, -2 octave, -1 octave. If it looks like this, just because I click here and remove this bar. So this way I remove the fundamental and it doesn't have sub bass. And then just this filter, opening and closing with this envelope for this effect. Now we need to decide what key we're going to use, and one that I recommend a lot, especially for really deep and strong basses, is G minor. In melodic techno you can use different types of mid-bass rhythms, maybe something like this can work. Maybe you can just have something like this. Maybe a faster. If you want to know more about how to make rolling basses, especially for this genre, I recommend you to go and check this video that I uploaded some time ago, and you're gonna have a lot of examples and tips. For this track I'm going to use this type of mid bass, just a rolling one, but my advice is always to make it a little bit shorter. This way you're gonna feel more each note. Then I'm going to use this other preset that I also made myself, a bit more for the higher part. And on this one what I'm going to do is, of course, have also the rolling bass, but I'm going to take the third of each beat and I'm going to put it 1 octave higher. This way you have a bit more rhythm and different groove. And of course you can choose the third, the fourth, the third and the fourth, or whatever other rhythm you want to use. We need to process these basses a little bit. On the first one I'm only gonna have this low cut to give space to the sub bass. Even if we cut the fundamental on the synth, sometimes you still have a bit of sub bass, so I prefer to cut it. This way make sure this is clean. And on the higher mid bass I decided to use the capitator to distort a little bit with a bit more bright sound. Also a low cut to clean the low end, and a boost here to have a bit more enhance on this area. But we need to think that we have two mid basses, one is a bit lower and one is a bit higher. So as the first one is stronger in this area, what we can do is maybe increase it a bit more and maybe make it softer. So this way we make sure we give a bit more space to the other mid bass in this area, and this way they match better. Now we're gonna take the two mid basses and we're gonna send them here, right click, route to this track only. So this way we can keep processing both together in this bus. A bit of saturation in the low end and especially in the high end, boosting a bit here and so this way we give a bit more brightness and more gritty sound. A bit of EQ, boosting here to give more warmth, but also cleaning a bit this area. And this EQ here is because I'm already thinking in the future, maybe later I need to touch it, but this is to give more space to the melodies and the high synth. The last but not least, to enhance a bit more the rolling of the mid bass, what I'm gonna use is volume shaper. With volume shaper, LFO, gross beat, I'm going to use this kind of waveform that is gonna make it shorter. As you can see, it's in 1/16. It's a bit more plucky. Now that we have the mid bass, the notes, the rhythm and all of this, we can choose a sub bass to cover the low end. And for this I'm going to use this, just a sine wave, nothing else, pure and clean. It's going to have this rhythm also. As it has a kind of a tag, I'm cutting all the highs. So this way it sounds more on the sub. But of course, if we play this now, it's nice, but the low end is clashing. We need sidechain. For both the sub bass and the mid bass, I'm going to use a bit of kickstart. On the sub bass is completely to the max, and on the mid bass a bit reduced, 88%. One tip is that when you load kickstart, it usually is like this. I don't like to have this little thing here because this can create a little click, so I prefer to move it 2 to the left, so I make sure when it starts it's already at the bottom. But this is not enough. I say to use kickstart first to get this kind of groove from that plugin, but I want to use volume shaper or shaper box to get a really precise sidechain. Let me show you. What we want to make sure is that when the kick gets muted, the bass starts sounding, and not before. The bass doesn't need to sound in this part, otherwise they're gonna clash and it's gonna sound bad. So what can we do? Maybe this kick is not that long, but sometimes you have kicks that are something like this. So I'm going to put a volume shaper in the kick, and what I'm gonna do is a waveform something like this, generating kind of the waveform of the kick. Maybe sometimes I make it a little bit longer, something like this, and I make sure it comes back up a little bit before. This way I make sure if there's any latency or problems, the kick is gonna sound perfectly when it starts, and the latency is not gonna generate something like this that I don't want. Now what we're gonna do is send this volume shaper to the sub bass. Now in the sub bass, what I'm gonna do is right click and click on mirror on X axis, and this is gonna flip it. So right now, in theory, the kick and the bass have the perfect sidechain and they never touch. But sometimes it's a bit too aggressive, so what I like to do is to make it a little bit softer, something more like this. And now with the sidechain. But if you want to make sure it sounds perfect, let's put this high cut around 80 Hz in the master, open shaper box and choose the oscilloscope. Then change this to 1/4 and play only the kick and the sub bass. And when we play it, we're gonna see this. As you can see, the waveform is natural. Here is a bit weird, but is quite natural. If the sidechain was not right, it would be something like this. Do you see that now this is like going down, then up again? And so it's because here probably we have the sub bass, we can mute the sub bass, and we see how it changes. This is not good. But with our sidechain, this is the kick, and this with the bass. So finally we have this. We can make the mid bass a bit better. If you go to this preset, here we have a macro that is controlling the cutoff. Sounds like this. If I open it, sounds like this. So what I'm gonna do is automate this. I decided to use this automation. As you can see, it's really subtle in some notes, but this is gonna add a bit extra groove. I'm gonna exaggerate it. Okay, now for the drums, we need hi-hats, we need shakers, and Anyma use a lot a kind of clap that feels like a snare, so we're gonna do this. I have this clap and this snare. What I'm gonna do first is try to remove a bit the attack of the snare, because it's going to interfere with the attack of the kick. And to do this, I'm gonna open it and move a bit this SMP start, something like this. So we have this noise of the snare. Now them two together sound like this. And I'm going to add this EQ, removing this low end, especially from the snare, and cleaning it a little bit. And then I have this transient processor reducing a little bit the release, because this is going to help to glue them a bit more, because they have kind of the same release decay waveform. So now we have this. But if you want to create a really atmospheric sound in melodic techno, which is really important, I recommend you to add a little bit of reverb in your drums. So what I did is here create a drum reverb bus, and then just click here to send them, and with this you control how much you want, the hi-hat, the shaker, and the clap snare. And here I have this reverb, of course 100% to the mix because it's a bus, a reverb bus, and really short one in played mode. So now they sound like this. You can feel a bit more the depth. Anyway, we're not gonna have the drums like this, we're gonna have a different arrangement, but I'm gonna focus now more in the idea. Okay, now probably what all of you are waiting for, the famous Anyma type of lead sound. Of course, you can use any kind of lead for this, and then apply the effects and the gates he uses. But let me show you what I did. Here I have this preset that I made myself, and I'm gonna explain it really quick. Oscillator A -2 octave, 9 voices, and this detunement. Oscillator B -1 octave, less voices and less detunement. Then with this LFO, I send it here to define around 50%, because he usually makes the pitch go up and down. But in the end, as I said, you can use any kind of lead sound because the magic comes here. In the LFO2, what I did is this waveform. Okay, and it's in 1/16. This is really important. This is sent to the levels of both oscillators. These are around 80% and these are around 60. And what this is gonna do is this effect. Okay, as you can see, we have this gate effect, and with this you can see that it goes up and down. To enhance this effect, what I did is use a filter, both oscillators, the cutoff like this, resonance, a bit more drive, and I send this LFO also here, so this way it opens and closes. But also what is really cool is I decided to take the LFO 3 and like this, I send it to this rate. Then in the matrix, you can control how much you want. I want it from 1/16 to 128. And I made this, and what this is gonna do is control if it's on 1/16, if it's on 132, if it's on 1/8. So a kind of more melody or changes in the gate effect. Last but not least, here I have this macro that is sent to the cutoff. So this way, just with this, I can control if I want it more filtered or less filtered in different parts of the song. And on the effects, I have just a basic whole reverb, not that much, before a distortion, because this way I kind of make the reverb a bit fatter and the sound in the end is a bit fatter, and a bit of ping pong delay, so this way we cover a bit more space. But it doesn't matter what synth you take to get this effect, what you need is just this LFO, and maybe this one if you want to change the gate. So now we have this. Start sounding cool, right? As this is not gonna be in the entire drop all the time, what I'm gonna do is here, I'm gonna add some kind of bass shots to add more variation. I have this rhythm. And for the first part of the drop, basically I'm gonna have this, I'm gonna extend it, and I'm gonna have the synth like this. Then, for the second part of the drop, what I want to do is to change a little bit. We can say that 2-3 years ago, Anyma was using a lot this synth, but now he's using more kind of normal melodies with euphoric synth and leads. So what I want to do for this video is use both types of drops, and I'm gonna have first this synth and then a normal melody. So for now, I'm gonna take all of this, gonna clone it here, remove the Anyma Lead, and well, I'm gonna extend this because I had more things, maybe not this one, and they have a bit different rhythm. And in these spaces I'm gonna have the new melody. For the melody I decided to go with this one that, as you can see, is pretty basic. Okay, it has a bit more changes here at the end, and here we have a control of the velocity. The velocity of this synth is sent to the cutoff, so depending on how high or low it is, it's gonna open more and close the filter. For example, if I have it here, really plucky, and if I have it here, more open and kind of a synth. So each way I'm having a bit of movement in the melody and it's not that static. But if you want to test this better and know more about this synth, maybe get the FLP. Wait, Wildcrow, what FLP? Yes guys, you can download this FLP. The link is down below in the description. I recommend you to go and get it and just enjoy and learn music production. And there is also an FL Studio stock plugins version for the ones that use third-party plugins. So now we have this. But something cool we can do is, apart from having the velocity controlling how much it opens and closes the cutoff, we can actually open and close the cutoff a bit more. So I'm going to create an automation of this macro that is linked to the cutoff. And for this part, I'm going to have it completely at the bottom, but then, boom, it opens. Because in this part, I'm going to keep the drop, and this way, from this, we go to this. We keep building up the energy, we keep making it brighter and more euphoric, and by the end of the drop, that will be here, we open it a bit more. And here the drop ends. But for this part, we're going to do two things. First, I'm going to add this. And what is this? An extra layer that has 2 octaves, so it will cover more of the space, and it sounds like this. Also with the velocity. In case you want to know, is the lead prog 3 of my Soundman Volume 2. You can also get it with the link in the description. So this way, apart from opening the cutoff, we make the leads evolve more by adding another layer. And then, instead of just copying all of this and pasting in here, what I'm gonna do is have a bass progression. We're gonna go a bit more melodic. So let's make this unique, and also this one unique. And the bass progression I'm gonna do is so simple. I'm gonna take these first 2 bars, put it 4 semitones down, then take this, put it 2 semitones down, and then I'm gonna come back to the G. Of course, you can make these changes every 2 bars, or maybe make these changes in every bar, something like this, or have any other kind of bass progression. Also, here we have the bass shots, and these are not gonna fit here when they don't have the same note, so I'm also gonna make it unique and change it. So now we have this. Yes, as you can see, I decided to add a bit more notes. Here we have these 2, here we have these 2, we have these 3 here. So we keep evolving the song. But hey, I told you that the drums were not going to have this arrangement. What I'm going to do? I'm going to start the drop without any drums. at the middle of the first part of the drop, what I'm going to have is the hi-hats, but only the hi-hats. Then in the second part of the drop, I'm going to have the hi-hats, the shakers, but not the claps. And then at the end, I'm going to have everything. So it's way that the song keeps evolving even with the drums. Also, Anyma likes to use a lot of voices, whether it's a main vocal or some kind of voice effects and sounds. I'm going to add this vocal drum from my Atmospheres pack volume 1. Right now it sounds like this, but we can make this more interesting. I'm going to open gross beat, put 1/4 beat gate, and reduce a little bit this. Some sidechain. And then I'm going to use the DJM filter to open and close it to have a bit more movement. But what I'm going to do is have this in the 3 parts of the drop, of course, but in the third one, I'm not going to have this. So it's way in the most euphoric and melodic part, we're going to have the vocal drum as it is. Then as extra air candy, I'm going to have this clap effect, really common in Anyma tracks to start the song, and this downlifter. So it will be like this. And I'm also going to have it here and here for the second and third part of the drop. And last but not least, I'm going to have these strings. That is from my Atmospheres pack volume 2, 120 samples, ready to drag and drop in your tracks to make them more interesting, sound fuller, with more emotion. Perfect. Okay, and basically like this we have the drop. Of course, we could do more changes, it depends on you, but in general this would be an Anyma drop with the classic Anyma type of sound at the beginning, and then with a melody with kind of euphoric lead sounds that also Anyma is using a lot lately. Let's go now to the break. If we check Anyma tracks, in general we could say the breaks are not really complex. They have pretty basic sounds, the ideas are also quite simple, but he creates really good atmospheres and really good emotions. I'm not saying his production is basic, what I'm saying is that he doesn't add 1,000 sounds and a lot of ear candy and effects here and there. No, it's not super crazy. So the break, I'm going to start it here with a wrist bass. Classic. Together with this wrist bass, I'm going to have some chords. Let's make them. I'm going to have first a piano that sounds like this. So the bass progression is going to be like the one in the drop. That was like this. For the bass progression, I'm going to go a bit basic. What I'm going to have is the third. This is one. And nothing else. But of course, this is a bit empty right now. What I'm going to do is to take this one, put it 1 octave lower, and this one octave higher. Of course, we can add more notes. We could clone again this here and this here, but I think we are in too much notes. Like this is better, a bit more emotional. And of course, you could add also the third, but too much harmonies in my opinion for this track. Then for this, I'm gonna do the same. So we have this. And to change between chords, we can add an extra note. For example, we could do this here, and maybe this here, and maybe this one here. And maybe here we could do something different. So from really basic chords, we have something really emotional. And also I'm going to use this for some pads to cover more space that open and close. But of course, the wrist bass is one note and this have a chord progression. It doesn't work. What I'm going to do is put this here. Here I'm going to make it unique, and I'm going to have just the first one and don't have this. Maybe also we can have this here, and for the pads, just extend it. And also for the wrist bass, we need to make it unique and have the bass progression. To cover more space and make this more interesting, I'm going to have this monophonic sound from my Atmospheres pack 2. Having these kind of voices from Anyma. And then here where we have the bass progression, I'm going to add also the vocal drone. Then he likes a lot to add drums in the breakdown, this way he keeps the rhythm and this way people keeps dancing. You can, for example, put kick with hi-hats, claps and all of this, or maybe everything without the kicks. In this case, I'm going to take the drop shakers. And I think here we need to add the melody. If you're making a song with a vocal, it would be a good moment to add the vocal, but I don't have a vocal. I'm going to take the melody from the drop, this one. But of course, this is not good for the break. So I'm going to put here plug melody, and I'm going to use this plug from my Samba Volume 2. Then here we're going to have the build-up, and it's going to be really simple to make. I'm going to take all of this and clone it here. Then I'm adding the melodies here, but I'm going to filter it. And also what I'm going to do is add the mid bass here. He likes a lot to add the mid bass rhythm in the build-up, of course with filter. So first, in the mid bass, we're going to have a filter that has a low cut that is reducing and the volume going up. From this to this. Then on the plug, I'm going to have also a filter that is cutting all the lows. So it goes from this to this. Then we have a ridge bass and we have a mid bass. This is a bit chaotic. That's why I had this low cut in the mid bass, and in the ridge bass I'm going to increase a low cut. So this way they never fight for the place. Last but not least, the melody. I have an automation controlling the sidechain, a filter, and also opening the brightness that we had in the drop. So it goes from this to this. Sorry for the chaotic on the automations and all of this. Now I'm just making the song. I'm not focusing on making it look cool and beautiful. What we can also do in the build-up is take these snares here and put them in the build-up. But this doesn't have enough attack. So I'm going to add this extra snare that have all the body. So now it's like this. But this is not going to be the main snare. For the common rolling snares going up, I'm going to have this one. But having it like this is boring. I'm going to open the snare, and here we can control the volume, and this like a filter. The volume and the filter. But we can go farther. I'm going to have this transient processor reducing the release. And what I'm going to do is open it as the build-up goes, so it's where we are introducing more noise and longer tail on the snares, so this way we add a lot more energy. If I exaggerate it, so well, now we have these snares. We make them evolve, we make them add more energy, come closer to the listener, so the build-up goes up. Last but not least, don't forget to add risers and noise and things. And in this case, as here we have this clap, it's going to be like, hey, the drop starts here. So we're going to remove everything that we have right here. Sometimes Anyma also puts the kick in the build-up, marking the rhythm. But in this case, I think it doesn't really work. And well, guys, this is basically how to make a melodic techno song in the style of Anyma, in both versions, like the famous type of slid sound and also with melodies. As I said, you can get this FLP. The link is down below in the description, just go there and get it. This way you can analyze it more, learn music production, learn about this genre, learn about the Anyma style. Also, you're gonna get the samples, the presets and all of this, so it can help you also in your own productions. But remember that you cannot just take this song and release it. I mean, no. A lot of people is gonna have it, and I have the rights of this one, so no. Just use it to learn production and maybe as a template for this style. And before checking the end result, leave me down below in the comments what other styles you want me to make and show you how to produce them, and leave a like and subscribe, I guess.